Well, before the break, we did have a story regarding cargo logistics and the increasing cost of doing the business of, let's say, importing and exporting goods out and in of the country. And like I said, we're going to go deeper into that conversation to try and understand what are the major challenges and what are those things that we need to understand from the world of logistics generally in that. So we are joined by a gentleman from the Maritime Cargo, that is Mr. John Samba. Many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
I do hope your morning has been a good one, because ours has also been quite a good one, I would say.
Yeah, it's been a good one. I can't say I've had any challenges, apart from basically the main problems that we're all facing.
Oh, okay.
But it's been a good morning.
All right. John, let's try to understand the logistics sector for the viewer to get to understand what are we going to have in the discussion. And since you're an expert from there, you can build on that.
Logistics is a wide thing, but most of us know logistics to be movement of cargo from point A to point B, and then right to the final consumer. So basically from where it starts to the final consumer, that's all logistics. Everything that's in between point A and B is logistics. Yeah, so basically that's the general look.
Okay. Since most of us do attach you to the cargo, more so imports and exports, how have you been faring in the last 2 years of the pandemic? Your sector was greatly hit. When you look at even the African coastline, most of them are just getting back to normalizing things.
Thank you very much. Generally, the pandemic affected everybody. It affected everybody, all sectors of the world. Actually, literally, the world came to a stop, came to a standstill when it came to COVID-19. And a few sectors, I would say, just like the president used to mention them, there are those special categories that you would have to look at, and then even if the world stopped, they wouldn't stop, they had to continue. So the logistics world was hit, was hit hard, because the mobility of the cargo was affected, the consumption itself was affected, because now the people that used to consume the items, the people that used to have the money then to spend, didn't have the money then. So the producers ended up being stuck with the goods. Okay. The goods didn't move because there was no mobility. Literally, the world was a standstill. And here and there, apart from the few necessities that were allowed to move, but it was a general negative impact on the logistics.
Okay. And if you look, that was pre-COVID. Let's look at the post-COVID. How did you manage to catch up before even going to the post-COVID? How did you catch up with the situation now? We've seen these effects rolling. How do you manage to deal with that?
Actually, fortunately, cargo, because cargo still moved even during the lockdown, the only hindrance was that the people that were supposed to handle the cargo were actually stopped from moving. Until after a further time from the authorities that would help the cargo movers. Let me say us, the cargo handlers, were allowed to move then. But during the pandemic itself, we had to think out of the box. Because like the hard times are not going to stop today, and they've been here, they're still coming. But we had to think out of the box, and we had to embrace technology at a point. You know, they always talk about technology, ICT and all that. This time we had to embrace it fully, because apparently the traders would not move, apart from the trucks that were carrying the cargo. But then making the orders themselves had become a challenge in the first phases of the lockdowns. But then we had to find out ways of getting these goods to get to the final consumer, because they are necessities at the end of the day, and the necessities needs to move. So we had to, just like we thought out of the box, and we came out with ways of how we could link the traders, the importers, with the producers. Producers out there. And then we still had some, yes, the cargo might have been a little low, but it's still, we got some.
Okay.
We got to move some.
Now, when you look at that, now we are living in post-COVID currently. I'm not saying that we are ruling out the idea of post-COVID.
Yeah.
Let's look at how ready are you? Because every other sector is now getting into a revival mode, recovery process.
Let me say, we are one of the ready sectors.
Okay.
Because we realized that we couldn't do business just like we did it in the back days. Now we move with the world as it moves.
Okay.
If it's ICT, we move ICT. If it's whatever comes, we embrace it, because now the COVID taught us that we can't stick to one route and get to your destination. We need, if it is plans, we need plan A, B, C, D up to Z. And if A fails, then you need to use B. So we are ready. How are we ready? We devised ways of, like I said, linking the importers to the manufacturers or the producers out there. And then we are linking the exporters still from here to the consumers out there. Because there are countries out there that want the goods that we produce here, and we need to find a way of moving the goods to them. But before you even move the goods to them, the deals need to be done. Somebody needs to sign, somebody needs to get the money, and then someone needs to produce. So the link in between the exporters and importers, that we have managed to resolve, because now business is moving as usual, even without the movement, because you realize most of the countries instituted lockdowns, especially for international travelers. Yeah, they will move within, but then the international travelers have been restricted until late. A few countries have adjusted, but for instance, our main source of imports, China, still restricts movement into China if you are international travelers.
Okay.
Except for a few special cases, but especially the traders and other visitors, you're not allowed to go to China. So we solved that by linking through the online trade platforms. We link the importers and exporters. Then even the sharing of the money, because remember, money is a very integral part of trade. So the movement of money is very, very sensitive. You realize there are a lot of con men online. So the traders need to be sure that their money is safe and it will reach where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
So that one we handle as well. And we've also tried to solve the problems that the traders are facing. The challenges in cargo clearances, the run times, the turnarounds, because you realize that the turnarounds are not as they used to be post-COVID or pre-COVID, but we're trying to get back to where we used to be pre-COVID.
Okay.
So we'll get there eventually.
I think this was supposed to actually come in as my first question, though. I wanted to know which, if you're to look at our major, where do our major imports come from normally, and which ports handle the imports that head to the East African community, let's say Mombasa and Dar es Salaam ports?
If you look at Uganda, Uganda consumes most of its items from abroad. Okay. And the biggest market or the biggest supplier of Ugandan consumables is China. Okay. China, most of the necessities that we use, the clothing, the clothing basically, or most of the times, because it's one of the necessities that we don't produce or we still lack in production, we get from China. Then we also have Dubai, especially for the mobility guys, for the cars and motorcycles, and a few spare parts are got from China, but because China is not a car producing company, most of the spare parts that we get are, a big chunk of them are second hand, or what we call used. And most of those are got from Dubai. There's a reason why they come from Dubai. I think the people that go to Dubai know why most of the used spare parts are in Dubai. But our two main exporting, because they would be the ones that sell to us, The two main countries that we import from are China and Dubai.
Well, take us through something about, I've had China's Wuhan, there is also Guangdong. There's some of those ports that I need to know that clearly, because in the pandemic, once Wuhan recorded the first COVID case, I think everything to do with commodity prices changed from that time.
Exactly. Let me say, for cargo movers, the biggest ports that we use in China, there is one that they call Ningbo.
Okay.
Ningbo is the one that has, I think, the Wuhan territory. And then there is one that we use, Nansha. Okay. Nansha port is the one that is in Guangzhou.
Okay.
In the Guangzhou territory. So most of our imports come from those two provinces, Nansha and then Yiwu. So when the lockdowns happened, or when the cases started to increase in those countries, of course they had to first put it on a pause. The movement was paused. The cargo had to be delayed to be loaded. You found that only the cargo that was allowed to move was the cargo that was found in the ports at that time. So most of the cargo that had not yet reached the port had to stall. Okay. So that meant that we had to have a shortage of imports, or a shortage of cargo that was moving, and then a shortage in the commodities themselves. Okay. Automatically, that would lead to a rise in prices. Whether you want it or not, it's just the market forces of demand and supply. Because
I wanted to help us exploit the reason as to why we have high costs of shipping goods lately.
Yes.
How have we reached here?
How have we reached here? We reached here even, I want to say even before the pandemic.
True.
The prices started to increase because the prices increasing prices of shipping, of moving cargo on sea or air, start with the shipping line. Now the shipping line is governed by the regulating bodies and then the regulating bodies of the country. So when they institute a measure, it has to cut across all. Now with the environmental fight, how we fight to regain the environmental, how do they call it, that environmental degradation thing, the authorities realized that the cargo ships were emitting a lot of impurities, both air and then in the seas themselves. So they had to come up with measures to mitigate that. Now, for them to mitigate that, is they will impose a charge on the shipping lines that have the cargo ships. So when they impose the charges will trickle down to you, the importer. Okay. The ones that's going to book the containers from them, you're going to feel it. So definitely when they increase the shipping rates, they increase the printing prices, even us will increase the shipping costs. Okay. Because it's coming down to us. We are the ones who are going to dance to the music. So when the shipping rates increase, the commodity prices are going to increase. Oh. Obviously, they are going to increase because we are going to take down the increase to the importer himself. Then the importer will put the increase on the commodities that they sell to the consumer, and then the consumer will have to find the money to buy. Okay. Especially if you need it.
Now, how are you mitigating the high costs of shipping goods in and out of the country? I do believe you, as people in the cargo and logistics world, can easily have solutions for some.
Yeah. Just like we are in, I would want to believe that we are in a free market economy worldwide, or let me say a global capitalistic market, where the market is open. Means you'll have various players. So in the event that there are more players entering the shipping and logistics markets, definitely the competition will have to drive the price down. Okay. Of course, it can't take it too low to run some companies out of business, but it's a reasonable thing that with competition, definitely the prices will be fair, especially to the consumer, because the competitors would want to win more clients. So for you to win more clients, you would have to get down to your operational costs. Can you run the business if you cut the rates? If you can cut the rates and still run the business, then better.
Okay.
At least you'll be outcompeting your competitors. So the only way to mitigate the increasing rates in shipping will come down to having more players in the shipping industries, like in the shipping farms, because that's where we book our containers from. So the more players that you have means the more options you have. So whoever gives you the better rate, because that's what they are playing with us. We are more than them, so they'll tell you whoever has the right money will get the box. If you don't have the right money, then you wait when they are available. So if they are not available, you end up facing the high costs.
Well, and the high costs are definitely there when you look at that. So I want us to also take a look at what is happening from, let's say, the world of the containers. The issue of the containers here. First and foremost, the first time I got to understand that containers always carry cargo was when I think I left high school. Or during high school, by the way, A-level. Back in the time, I thought someone could just import an empty container and then it comes automatically here. So how do people get these containers?
Containers are got in two ways.
Okay.
If you want to own a container, you can, one, buy it from the maker.
Okay.
Because there is a maker, and then there is...
The maker is the manufacturer?
Yes, the manufacturer of the box.
Of the whole, he just manufactures a container?
Box, just the container.
Okay.
And then he's at liberty to lease it out. Just like you buy a plot of land and then lease it out to someone that's going to use it. So the manufacturer will make a box, then lease it out to the shipping company.
So the shipping company can sell?
Yes, the shipping company can sell.
Or just carry cargo in there?
The shipping company is supposed to carry because it's not theirs.
Okay.
They are just leasing it for a period of time. So they will just carry cargo. Then after the period is done, they can either extend to own the box or return the box if the maker wants it. So the one that wants to own a container, you can either buy it from the maker, or you can, that's internationally, if you want to get it right from the source, or you can buy it locally on the market here. There are people who, according to in logistics, they call them the Incoterms.
Okay.
People buy cargo and they don't know if they are going to own the container or not, because they don't understand these things. Okay. Someone says, I have my cargo, I want it to come to Uganda. So when they say, I want it to come to Uganda, the shipper will ask, do you want to own the box or do you want me to own the box? If the shipper owns the box, it means after you remove your cargo, you return the box to him.
I do believe it comes with extra charges. If
of course, if you want to keep it, then it will increase the charges. Now, because this person doesn't know that the charges will increase because you're owning the box, they will think that's the rate that they are getting the cargo. So until it gets here and they tell them, no, it's your box. You bought it along with the cargo. So they are here with it. They don't have anything to do with it. So they look for somebody else to buy it. So that's two ways you can own a box.
Have there been cases of boxes returning back empty on the ship?
On a ship? I want to believe, because we do not have the amount of exports to match the imports that we bring in. Most of the times the boxes return empty. Until we reduce the gap to almost equal.
I think that backs it up mainly. Now, let's look at cases to do with smuggling. We've had a story here today morning, speaking of cases of impounded cars at the Mombasa port that have just been released in the process. And most of them have actually been there for 1 or 2 years on the issues to do with smuggling. How do you people try to actually prevent these outcomes? Because I do believe once smuggling cases happen, the first eyes are always pinned on the cargo or on the logistics companies.
No, it will not be pinned on the logistics companies because, for starters, for you to move cargo from, let me say, the destination port, after it has left the country of origin to the destination ports, in this is also Mombasa. When the cargo gets to Mombasa, before you move it, you need to declare it with the authorities. In our case, it's URA. So URA mandates you to declare what you have bought in the box that we intend to move from Mombasa to Kampala. So everything that is in the box is documented. It's documented right from the country of origin. They give you a web bill. That web bill indicates every item that you've put in the box. So when you declare it with URA, it has to match the manifest from the shipping line.
Okay.
That we moved this from China to Mombasa. So it has to match. The moment it gets to, when it comes through the border, then to the warehouses, because we, the cargo consolidators or the cargo movers, we are mandated by URA to warehouse our goods first. Bring them, deposit them into the warehouse, because the system automatically does that. Then after they've been warehoused, you'll get your people, all the cargo owners, to come and verify. Verification means they are going to come and attest to what they brought, what you declared for them, and what they bought. So they will say, yes, I bought this, and this is what has been found in the container. In the event that it is found that some of the cargo was not declared and yet found in the box, URA automatically penalizes you.
Okay.
Because that would be taken as you wanting to smuggle in cargo. So because we don't want to dance to that music of penalties and seizures, we make sure that we declare 100%. So with the cargo movers, our cargo is always declared 100%. So we are not part of the smugglers community. So the smugglers have a way of finding their cargo onto the market, but for us as movers, we mitigate that because URA mandates us to do that.
Okay.
And if you don't do that, then you don't have a license for you to do that business.
Well, under what circumstances could, let's say, a customer with you people choose to say, I'm either going for air or water?
Or water.
If you're to give us, at least you could say maybe reason, or there is specified cargo that cannot move on water and has to use the plane, and which charges, which is more expensive. And also you'll also have to touch on the issue of road transport. I hear it's more costly once the ship has actually docked at the port.
It is. Okay, for starters, let me start with the first one that you came with. When do we determine, or when does a client determine to use air or sea?
Yes, or sea.
That is our duty, because we have a right to inform our clients of the best way they can do business, right from logistics. The rates are different. Some items are not allowed to be moved via air, and yet they can be moved via sea. So the difference between sea and air is that for air cargo, most of the times, though it is not a cardinal rule, but most of the times, the cargo on air is rated based on the weight. How heavy is the item. Whereas for sea, because we measure the space of the box, we charge the rates according to the space occupied in the box. So that is volume. But then the logistics rule is that me, the shipper, I'm mandated to charge you on whichever is higher between the weight and the volume. So whichever is higher is the one that I will charge you. But most of the times, because for sea cargo, we look at the space occupied in the box, we charge you based on the volume. It's only under special circumstances that maybe your cargo is too heavy and yet too small. So the weight outmatches the volume. But we advise our clients based on the goods that they want to bring in. Because you will come to us, tell us, I want to transport this or I want to import this. Then we look at the time frame that you want it to be shipped in. Because the time frame also determines which mode we will advise you to use, regardless of whether it is heavy or huge, bulky. Because most of the times clients have contracts. Contracts have timelines, and then they have to meet the deadlines for those contracts. So it is upon us to advise you that based on the time frame that you have, and then on the cargo that you want to move, this is the best mode for you to move.
Okay.
So that's how we determine either to use air or sea. You touched the point of road transport being high.
Yeah.
Yes, road transport has increased, just like the commodity prices have increased. Reason has been we've had a lot of challenges with road transport recently.
Okay.
From the lockdown, then the border standoffs, then the different policies by different countries, especially the East African countries that do import. Some countries allow, then other countries restrict. So you will find that the movers, the road movers or the truck drivers, even the transport companies, prefer that countries that don't have restrictions to those that have restrictions. So you will find, let me say, I want to give you an example, live example. South Sudan, specifically Juba, because Juba is the main trade city of South Sudan. They increased their imports, especially after the lockdown, because they have a lot of UN contracts and all the other stuff that come in. So their imports increased, and then they didn't have restrictions.
Okay.
Then we had the same imports here, but then we had border restrictions for truck drivers. You had to test for COVID-19, then you have to foot the bill for testing yourself.
Okay.
Then there were a lot of things that actually turned the drivers off.
John, now let's talk about some of the challenges that you face.
Yeah.
Just like any other business, there are a number of challenges that you encounter. Now, for the logistics world, what are those challenges that you look at and clearly say that, well, these have affected the journey of the importation? Because we clearly would say the cost of importing and exporting is high, but we never know what is happening behind closed doors. Now, that is what we want to have here.
The challenges that we have start right away from the originating countries, especially us who are dealing in the shipping industry. Right from the shipping lines increased their rates, the rates for you to hire the box. As if that was not enough, then that had to increase every other aspect of the journey right to the destination. Because if the shipping line increases, then me, the consolidator, I'm going to increase as well. And then the importer is also to increase because I've increased. Then the other challenge was for road transport. I wanted to finish this, but let me put it here.
Okay.
The restrictions for road transport came with government policies. That one I might say it was not because the goods were stuck or something. Government policies derailed the road transport process because the border restrictions were too many. There were too many and really unnecessary at times. I don't want to say they were too unnecessary because it was important that they check, but then the government should have found ways of handling this much better. It wasn't that good. It cost the traders a lot and it increased the rates. Then the other challenge that we have, most of our clients think that we the cargo movers or we the cargo consolidators determine the taxes for them. It is a very wrong notion. It is not the cargo consolidators that determine your taxes. Your taxes are regulated by URA, and the values that are given, actually it is the clearing agents that have to argue on the issue of taxes. Because the taxes are imposed on the importers, and it is their agents to try to see a way around the values that are given. It is not us, the cargo movers. We just move the cargo, we hand it to you, and you give it to your agent.
Okay. Before we actually head into the issue to do with the Russian and Ukraine war and its impact on imports and exports in the country, I think most of you are also waiting to hear of that particular one. Let's try to sum up this discussion of the issue of skyrocketing consumer goods prices, like soap, let's say cooking oil and sugar. Do you believe this has been as a result of the affected imports and exports?
Yes, to a large extent, I would want to say yes. For starters, let me give you an example of soap.
Okay.
Soap is made from petroleum, if I must say. Chemicals, there are chemicals that are involved in the soap making, but then there are other ways of making soap besides chemical mixing. And then you'll find cooking oil prices increasing. Why are they increasing? They are increasing because the cost of production has increased. There are a lot of materials that are involved or that are added into the production of these items. Most of those materials are imported. Now, because they are imported, the rates of moving cargo into the country has increased. The taxes on those imports has increased. The fuel prices have increased, unfortunately. They will tell us that the amount of fuel that enters into the country is more than we consume.
Okay.
The question would be, why aren't the fuel prices going down? If we have more fuel,
they have actually stabilized to 5,000.
Yes, if we still have more fuel coming in than we consume, why aren't the prices coming down? So because the prices are still high, the biggest excuse that a seller will give to you, even for produce that you will get from a garden, let me say tomatoes, the seller will tell you, don't you see the prices of fuel are high?
True.
Because fuel affects the mobility of these goods.
Anyway, you go
locally, internationally, you will still need fuel to move these items.
True.
Now, because the fuel prices are still high, these commodities are still going to increase. That couples it with the reduced imports of the raw materials that they bring in. So they either have to outsource them locally or find from the neighboring countries that have plenty and then bring them and produce. That means their cost of production is still going to increase. So definitely your local consumables are going to have to increase.
All right. We are still looking at the cargo logistics here in Uganda and the business mainly, the soaring prices in terms of the exports and the importation. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the UN came out with I would say, a vote whereby the majority of the countries did support the UN to sanction Russia. And then one of the countries, some of the African countries, and not only the African countries, some countries, and among which Uganda inclusive, abstained from the vote. Well, the other 5 decided to defend Russia. When you look at that, the business world is actually being affected in the long run. When you look at the fact that Russia is ranked first in gas production, the leading gas producer, and when you look at oil and gas production, still a big factor when it comes to that. So it is actually affecting not only Uganda but also the entire African community. When you look at that, still we are always asking ourselves questions like how and when will this end, and how far is it going to affect the entire Uganda? Because simply, we are a landlocked country and we are benefiting. When you look at the East African community, we are always getting some of the wheat imports from Russia and Ukraine as well. Not only that, but oil and gas sector. Where does this leave us? Now, let's look at this particular situation. Yeah. Once this happened as well, the business community started feeling the pinch. When you look at this, how can the Ugandan exporters ready themselves to, one, is there an opportunity even to exploit the Russia-Ukraine war, or are there even services that we can, goods and services that we can export to these countries?
Thank you very much, Jerome. Let me start from the exploitation of the war. The biggest beneficiaries of war are definitely the manufacturers of weapons. Because in a war, that's your
It is always weapons.
Yes,
on the go.
Weapons. The next beneficiaries would be the suppliers of food. Food, because in war, whether you're in war or not in war, you will not explain to the stomach that, hey, today we will not eat because we're at war. So food needs to be increased. So the best opportunities that we, Uganda, can have, since we are the food basket of Africa, is increase our food production. Because at the end of the day, these people need to eat, whether they are in Ukraine or Russia, or especially the displaced citizens, the civilians that are running out of the war zones will need to be fed. The only benefit you'll get is if you position yourself well, because the countries are going to come to source for those grains and all those dry foods that they will need to stock up for a longer time. Nobody can tell when the war will last. Even when the war has ended, still the after effects of the war have to come in. The best opportunity for Uganda, I must say, because our production is not the best. We are not the best producers of other usable commodities, but we are good at food production.
Okay.
If we can manage to feed our neighbors, we can certainly as well feed.
Okay. How is this war affecting the imports and exports of Uganda?
Okay. The war is affecting the imports and exports of Uganda, but I don't think it will affect majorly the exports, because we really don't have anything. We don't have significant things we export to those two countries. Okay. If anything, we import from them. Okay. Because those two countries, I must say, are one of the leading producers of wheat, and they are the leading exporters of wheat. So apart from us importing from them, there's really not much we export to them. So how does the war, how is it going to impact on the imports and exports? For Uganda, not significantly, I must say, but for probably the neighboring countries and the countries that are around Ukraine and Russia, there are some cargo ships. Most of the times cargo ships are registered to countries. So if there are sanctions on Russia, that means most of their items will not be used. So Russia has cargo ships that will not be moving. That means there will be a shortage of cargo ships to move the cargo around. Same will be, I don't think the same will be for Ukraine, because Ukraine doesn't have the sanctions, but the shortage of the cargo ships because of Russia's sanctions will affect the imports and exports, because the turnaround this time now will have to be affected. It won't be as it used to be, because now there are less ships than there were before. So even in a matter of retaliation, still Russia can say, I will not move my ships to your destinations. So you can have other countries supply to you, but me, I won't.
Okay. Still feeling the pinch and being affected. All right. Now, John, as we're summing up with this discussion, I'm giving you 2 minutes of giving out your last submission to the viewers and also just a general understanding of logistics.
Okay. I want to send this out to the importers and exporters, because importers are our biggest clientele. I want to encourage them or give them reassurance that as we have, let me speak for Maritime, because I represent Maritime now, we continue to give you the service as we used to give it to you before, even before the lockdown. And now we even added some other services that we found that are really, really necessary for our clients. We want to advise you, or we want to inform you that take part in the engagements, especially with the stakeholders. In this case, I would want to invite all our importers to listen so much to programs that are aired by URA, because URA are the biggest stakeholders here. They determine a lot in the trade, both imports and exports. Then let our importers seek to find knowledge. Don't just rely on one person because you trust them and then they will give you everything that you need. They can't be, nobody can be a sole custodian of knowledge. Try as much as you can, go out of your way, find out from the service providers that you use. In this case, we, the people that consolidate your cargo, come to us, find us, and then we will advise you on how to go about business. Business cannot stand now. We still have to move ahead. With or without war or without pandemics, we still run business.
All right. That is John Samba for you from Maritime Cargo Limited. Many thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you. And giving us an insightful view of the logistics, the reasons as to why behind the soaring prices, and also taking us through how how the Russia and Ukraine war will have an impact on Uganda's economy. We are a landlocked country, and when you look at that, we can still feel the pinch in the long run. You never know. And as well with the fact that even our fuel prices are still on the rise, and Russia being one of the key producers and major exporters of oil and gas greatly, you can understand that fuel prices may not be static for the time being. We may expect an increase maybe in the long run, but you never know how far will the war go. But with that, that brings us to the end of our topic of discussion. After this, we do return with sports business, as we are going to talk of motorsport, Formula One, and also head to the English Premier League to talk Chelsea Football Club. Stick around.